Lee Summit is your destination for big city vibes and small town charm.
Head to the downtown Lee Summit Farmers Market, where local meets fresh. Then grab a cup of coffee and discover a variety of shops and boutiques just around the corner. Continue the fun in downtown Lee Summit at a retro arcade bar. Discover your new beer at one of our 6 locally owned breweries. Cool off with some handcrafted cocktails at happy hour. End the night with live music and good company. Lee Summit, Missouri.
I'm Assistant Chief Jim Eden.
And I'm Battalion Chief Ben Hicks.
And today we're at Lee Summit Fire Station 3. Fire Station 3 was part of the 2016 no tax increase general obligation bond for public safety initiatives. The station was built and occupied in August of 2020. Unfortunately, due to the pandemic, we've not been able to give tours or have an actual ribbon cutting. So we want to invite you in today to give you the opportunity to see what goes on within a Lee Summit Fire Department station.
Let's go take a tour. This is our admin side of the facility. We use this side mainly for offices. We have a lot of work during the day, whether it's training or doing reports or just generally taking care of the shift that we need to do. At this particular station, Station 3, we do have an assistant chief that works out of here. That person has their own office where they need to manage what's going on throughout the day with the shift and staffing, and as well as running calls out of here. The captain has their own office as well. What the captain does is at this specific station is in charge of both the fire truck that's here as well as the ambulance. And so with all those personnel responsibilities as well as running calls and reports, that's where they work out of. And generally for the rest of the crew, which is somewhere around 5 to 6 individuals, we have rooms to write reports, and we have additional training rooms and other rooms where people can work. Walking into our living area, I think it's important to recognize that we work 48-hour shifts. So in the evenings, after 5 o'clock, after work is done, we may have the opportunity to catch a game or something else as long as we're not running calls. And this gives us the opportunity to do that. When we go into our kitchen, I think this gives you a great reason to know why we go to the grocery store. When you see fire trucks at the grocery store, what we're doing. Also for 2 days working for 48 hours, we buy all our meals at the grocery store, and then we come in here and cook, just like you guys do at home. So everybody has their own fridge on each shift as well as their own pantry, and then we cook those meals here. Going into the sleeping side of things, we've got a couple different things that are significant. We have our own laundry room, which again is important when we're here for 48 hours. The opportunity to wash and clean our clothes and bedding is very important for hygiene. And walking into where our beds are, we keep the kind of sleeping quarters over on one side of the building. It gives us both easy access out to where our fire apparatus are, as well as kind of keeping it a little bit quieter for those people that have been up all night running calls. We have 11 bedrooms here at this station. And the reason we built it with so many bedrooms is we want to give ourselves as a city the opportunity to expand. So if we need to put another apparatus here or numerous other people working at this station, that's already in place as far as infrastructure goes, and we don't need to go back and try to make it bigger or better. And that's really important for us, especially because the old station was so small. Back out on the apparatus floor, we have doors facilitated as many places as possible, so that way when we're sleeping at night and a call comes out, we can make our way out fairly quickly to get out onto the truck if we need to and run a call. On the other side of the station, we kind of have other stuff that we may want to keep separated if we want to. Physical fitness is very important to us as firefighters. So in order to better ourselves and make sure we're as healthy as we can to do this job, we have our own gym facility here that we kind of go throughout the day when we can and get an opportunity to come in and work out. Our goal when we run calls, when we get back to the station after calls, our goal is to get ready to go back as soon as we can to run another call. So we have the opportunity or capability here to fill up our air tanks. You see firefighters wear the big air tanks on their backs, and they use those in a fire. We can come back and fill those up and make sure that we're ready to go again when we're wanting to go run another call. We have our own workshop here. We work on a lot of our tools and making sure that everything's clean and operational, and this gives us the capability to do that, again, to make sure that we have everything we need and we're as capable as we can be running calls throughout the city. Cancer prevention is very important in the fire service right now. Because of that, we have an extractor machine, and what this does is gives us the capability when we come back from a fire, we can put our bunker gear into this machine and get all that really nasty crud off of our gear. Again, kind of getting back to that cancer prevention mode, allowing us to be as clean as we possibly can for the next call. And finally is our bunker gear room. We each have our own individual locker. This gives us the opportunity to store our gear when we're not here working in between shifts, as well as keep a clean extra set on here in case we do run a fire and we need to clean our current gear. Typically, this is where your day starts off at the fire station. You come in and get your gear and put it on wherever you're working that day, and then you end the same way, bring your stuff back to your locker to go home after working. This is Med 3. This ambulance just currently moved into the station from Station 7. Station 3, since we've had it built, has turned into one of our busiest stations in the city. Therefore, we wanted to provide the best care in the closest unit as we could. So we moved one of our ambulances up, and this became Med 3 for this particular instance. Out of this station, we also have Pumper 3. And that's a fire apparatus that they utilize to run the calls on this west end of the city. The last vehicle that you see is the chief's vehicle. We have 2 shift chiefs on shift every day, and they split the city. And this chief running out of this station typically covers the west and south area of the city, while our chief at Station 2 covers kind of that northeast section of our city, and they divided it up evenly.
Thank you for going on a tour with us today. If you have any other questions about the Lee Summit Fire Department, please go to our webpage at lsfire.net or follow us on Facebook at Lee Summit Fire Department.
Thanks for joining us on the tour.
Traditionally, we think as police officers, those responding to law enforcement needs within the community. But honestly, we are there to serve our citizens, and our citizens do go into crisis. They do have mental health crises, and we're being called to those scenes on a regular basis. In order to help serve those citizens better, we did initiate the Crisis Intervention Team Program. These are officers that are specially trained to de-escalate crisis situations. Recently, we've brought co-responders onto the scene, licensed qualified mental health professionals housed within our police department, and they respond with those officers directly to those scenes where a crisis is occurring so they can interact with that citizen and get them the help they need right there on that scene.
The co-responders are either a bachelor or master level in a behavioral health related field. They wear plain clothes, they don't carry weapons or anything like that.
I have a police radio that I listen to all day. Listen for, those key words: mental health, behavioral health, crisis.
There's a lot of officers that just call for me. I have my own radio number.
I also have the ability to self-dispatch to them and say 982 is en route.
Officers en route, 914, Armstrong.
So typically I arrive after they've made it safe. I'll make contact and get kind of the rundown, and then I just kind of jump right in.
I'm like, hey, my name's Allison. I'm a mental health professional. I'm here to help you. I'm not here to take you to jail or arrest you.
Sometimes all a person needs is a voice, someone neutral, someone outside that, can listen. I do a lot of safety planning, including family, their support network, who's close to you. If they're home alone, who can come over and hang out with you today? Can we lock away your sharps? Can we put up your meds? Do you need meds? Can we get you over to the urgent care to get you assessed for your medications? Some of them also are like, oh, I'm so glad you came. This made me feel so much better.
Our main goal as the co-responders is to, one, get people connected to the services that they need, and also divert from emergency rooms and jails.
And they almost get a different view of the police responding. That lets me know you care and the officers care.
Please, how can we help you?
My husband has...
In 2020, we had 722 mental health related calls for service. 2022, by that time, 1,479. These mental health related calls for service are increasing. How we're responding to that is increasing the number of crisis intervention team officers we have available, as well as the number of co-responders we have available to respond on these calls.
So what I think is important for the community to know about the co-responder program is that we're here, we exist. All you have to do when you call 911 is ask for us. Say, hey, I want a co-responder to respond to this crisis, and we'll go. I was really struggling about 8 years ago on my personal journey with mental health, and I met some amazing social workers and amazing programs that have helped me get to where I am today. I really couldn't see myself doing anything else. We want to help, and that's what we love to do.
So I had a client, we got a call, she had some suicidal ideations, and she really felt that she had nobody. And and getting to know her story and getting to know who comes around and sees you, well, then we found a support person and they responded immediately and we made a plan. I called back and checked on her in an hour, and then I checked on her in 2 hours. We were able to get her into the additional services to where she talks to someone every week or more. I just took a person that really just thought they had nobody and nobody would show up for them, and show them you do. And you'll be amazed who is in your corner if you just simply say, I need a little help.
It's extremely rewarding overall. Just the fact of working with other council people and other volunteer commission members that are so involved and care so much about making this community better. It sort of kind of lifts your own spirits by being involved in that kind of environment with other people like that. For many years, I was a typical resident, raising a family, going to work, in many cases leaving the city for employment, and went through a leadership class through the chamber. Learned a lot about our city and learned about all the great amenities and resources we have, and was asked if I was interested in volunteering on a commission. I said yes, and kind of the rest is history. I've just completed my third year on city council, and so looking forward to finishing strong with this first term, and look forward to continuing to serve this community. My thing is that there's so many talented people in this community that believe in so many different initiatives. And for me, one of the big reasons why I decided to run was that as a residential taxpayer, I felt that we can always increase the business tax base of our community. And that's kind of been a big part of my involvement on city council, is to encourage and promote and make it easier for development to occur, commercial development to occur in our community, to increase that tax base and diversify that tax base. And so I think we've made significant strides the last few years. We've had a collective great group of council members and mayor where we've really truly accomplished a lot of things that there were somewhat kind of stumbling blocks for previous councils. Working new contracts with our union personnel, firefighters and police was a big accomplishment for us. The fact that we were able to push along some initiatives like the downtown renovation for a market, a farmer's market. It's been a great experience to be part of those meetings, to help nudge it, and to the point where we have a developer involved is just a great feeling to have been part of that. And others, I mean, I think our park system, we've continued to support our park system to add a new community center, for example, that we negotiated with the Metropolitan Community Colleges. So I'm proud of all those things and just being able to help make a difference in many aspects. I love definitely spending time with my family. We have 3 daughters and they're all fairly active, in some in sports and other extracurricular activities. But for me, I love being outdoors. I love the trails, I love riding my bike, and I love playing golf. And we have awesome amenities and options within our community to have that kind of a lifestyle. This June will be 25 years that my wife and I have lived in Lee Summit and have raised 3 daughters in this community. I know this city has incredible, talented residents that come from all different walks of life, very diverse group of families in our community, that it's so rewarding to be involved on a government level or some kind of civic commission or committee, that in many cases you get out of it more than you put in. And I truly live by that, and I believe that.
Now I'd like to call to order the Wednesday, September 13th, 2023 Community and Economic Development Committee meeting. Could we have a roll call, please?
Chair Edson,
Here.
Vice Chair Pryor,
Here.
Councilmember Hodges,
Here.
Councilmember Felker,
Here.
Planning Commissioner Arth.
Yes, and Planning Commissioner Arth got hold of me and said she would not be able to be here due to some work constraints. All right, let's move on to, could I get an approval of the agenda, please?
Chair,
Yes.
I move to approve the August 9th, 2023 Community and Economic Development. Oh,
Are you
no. Yeah, the agenda. Sorry.
The September 13th agenda?
Yes,
Okay.
September 13th agenda. Second.
We have a motion to approve the September 13th, 2023 agenda by Councilmember Pryor, a second from Councilmember Hodges. Could we have roll call, please?
Councilmember Hodges?
Aye.
Councilmember Felker?
Aye.
Chair Edson,
Aye.
Vice Chair Pryor.
Aye.
Do we have any public comments? It looks like we have no public comments today. Moving on to the first order of business, approval of the August 9th action letter. Could I get a motion to approve, please?
Chair,
Councilmember Hodges.
I move to approve the approval of the August 9th, 2023 Community and Economic Development Action Letter.
Second.
I have a motion to approve the action letter for August 9th by Councilmember Hodges, a second by Councilmember Pryor. Is there any discussion? Could I have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Felker?
Aye.
Chair Edson,
Aye.
Vice Chair Pryor,
Aye.
Councilmember Hodges.
Aye.
Thank you. That motion is approved. Could I have a motion to approve the August 17th, 2023 action letter, please?
Chair,
Councilmember Felker.
I move for the approval of the August 17th, 2023 Community and Economic Development Action Letter.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion to approve the August 17th, 2023 action letter by Councilmember Felker, a second by Councilmember Hodges. Any discussion? Could we have a roll call, please?
Chair Edson,
Aye.
Vice Chair Pryor,
Aye.
Councilmember Hodges.
Aye.
Councilmember Felker.
Aye.
All right, and that's approved. Now, on to the next item of business is the discussion for a proposed UDO development on temporary signs.
Hello, how are you? There we go. Wanted to think about it for a second. Good evening, Amy Nassif, Deputy Director of Development. Yes, here this evening, we want to talk a little bit about our temporary sign chapter of our Unified Development Ordinance. And first, just kind of want to set the parameters of what we're talking about for a temporary sign. Temporary sign is defined in our UDO currently. This is the definition right out of that. As a sign displayed as part of an activity that has a specific duration or an end to a specific action, usually lasting for less than 12 months at a time. And so what we wanted to do and talk about is we found a lot of opportunities when we did kind of an audit of our temporary sign chapter is to look at ways where we can improve readability and clarification of some of our requirements. We had some inconsistencies in there to clean up, and then also want to have some discussions with you all about things such as duration that we uncovered, that we would just be looking tonight to seek your direction to allow us to move forward, to prepare some draft language and to look at things deeper dive. And like everything, the reason that we're here tonight is one of the opportunities helps to advance our goals of our comprehensive plan. This one is for our land use and community design. Because when we're talking about our Unified Development Ordinance, that's really our main implementation tool to implement our goals of our comprehensive plan. And so a lot of this out of there helps with our processes and understanding our requirements for high quality design. So we have 3 sections of our UDO that talks about temporary signs. And I apologize, I had a small typo in the one that was posted on Legistar, so I'm using this updated one here, just to one of the division sections. So, but the first one, Division 3, that section talks about our definition, and it sets the time frame of being 12 months or less in time, and also provides different examples of temporary signs. But then the other section in Division 5, 9.220, that establishes our requirements, and it really starts diving into it. Talks about the different categories and signs in a different way from what our neighbors and other municipalities do. And then 9.260 is a table, and I have a little excerpt of that for you. And that table shows what types of permitted signs are allowed. There's a little bit of inconsistencies between the kind of three areas, so just some really great opportunity to clean things up. And then again, some of those types of temporary signs in that temporary sign table actually say that there's no time limit. There's an opportunity there just to discuss that and see if there might be desire to update that as well. So, for instance, this is an excerpt from our temporary sign chapter. And I also have down below, which I did get right, there's links there too if you had wanted to check out the links, and it will shoot you directly to the section of code that we're referring to. But this is our temporary sign table. And this just gives you an example of how the one area shows, like at the very top here, if you can see, some of these signs actually have no time limit. It's a little interesting to not have a time limit at all on our temporary signs. And then also, we really dive quite deeply, much more so than most municipalities do, on zoning district, type of use on the property, type of event, what's on the sign, is it banner, is it rigid, as opposed to some of our neighboring communities. That makes those requirements a little bit more easy to understand.
Okay, could you go back just
I sure can.
So on the last one, on which has really almost all the zoning districts, so the RDR, RLL on that line, type of event, non-commercial, what type of signs would fall under that?
That could be a real estate sign, it could be a political sign, it could be a garage sale sign, it could be any kind of yard sign.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Welcome. It could be a food truck sign. I have those in my yard on Wednesdays. My neighborhood does that. Yes, sir.
Councilmember Felker.
So you just said could be a food truck sign. That seems commercial.
That's true. I'm going to take that one back. I'm hungry. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Or I'm just thinking about when, roof's been redone or the lawn's been seeded. There's all kinds of little
Those
signs.
are more commercial ones because it's a commercial activity, to your point.
Right. Okay. So and am I just bringing up something that's inconsistent with what we're doing, or?
No. It's just, this is one small section. The
part.
table is this long, so I just
okay.
picked one excerpt. And the reason I picked this one excerpt too is because it had a couple of the areas that said like no time limit. So just thought that was interesting, just to show the point how we have a lot of signs that have that. Yeah. So our other division or section that talks about temporary signs is 9.220, and that's where we get into a lot of our actual regulations. And some of the opportunities here are, for instance, it says currently that signs are permitted on private property only. Well, it says this under non-commercial temporary signs. It actually could apply for all temporary signs. It also says it has to be placed by the property owner. Again, that's more of like a general requirement as opposed to just for one specific type of temporary sign. And they also shouldn't be in the right of way. You don't allow any signs in the right of way. So just things and opportunities like that to clean up and just to clarify. And then we do get a little bit more into the weeds with, instead of like, and I'll show you some examples here, we start to get really dive into the type of sign and how it's related to an activity, much more so on that content as opposed to our neighbors. Also, when you talk about, say, real estate signs, for instance, where it talks about we can only have a real estate sign if you're, say, selling your house, if you're working with a licensed agent, or it's only if you're selling it yourself, but then you have to be in the paper. Like, those are things that we could regulate instead by the number of signs and the size as opposed to what the specific activity is. And I will show you that opportunity here. So this is an excerpt from Overland Park, how they regulate their signs, their temporary signs right now. This is an excerpt from their table for commercial, industrial, or agricultural districts or non-residential uses on some of their residential districts, even though it doesn't say that too. But stake signs, for instance, it's just 3 per lot. And it gives a size, and it gives a height limit and a time delay. And that's typically how a lot of people are going with these now, where you're regulating the type of sign, stake sign, banner sign, those feather or quill signs, as opposed to the actual event or type that it's associated with.
Well, and I have a question. Okay.
Yes.
Go back. What's a feather sign?
A feather sign is like those quill signs that you have. They're really tall and they're like narrow. So it looks like a feather. And I have a picture of one later. Yes.
Okay. All right. And also, well, on the time limit, I mean, how do you police that?
Well, so commercial temporary signs do require a permit. So
Okay.
that's how we currently police that. Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. So, and then Blue Springs recently updated their sign code section for their temporary signs, about 3.5 years ago. And they are very similar to Overland Park as well, and Lenexa too, where again, they're going to be regulating the signs based on the type of signs as opposed to what it's saying, how it's advertising or things like that, and getting really into the weeds on it. So as you can see here, this is their temporary sign chart. So currently in our code, we distinguish in 4 different ways, and we really dive into what a non-commercial sign is and what it's communicating, commercial, political signs, and then we even in our sign chapter under the definitions talk about what a home parade sign is, a garage sale, construction, and everything else. But when we were looking at neighbors and what best practices are, so cities such as Blue Springs, Lenexa, Olathe, Overland Park, with the only exception of like if you get a special event permit, they aren't focusing on those same ways like we currently are. They're focusing instead on the sign design. Is it a feather sign? Is it a yard stake sign? What's the size of it? And they're regulating it that way for the total amount. So for example, they'll say in their code, a feather sign, and this is straight out of Overland Park. Here's your answer for what a feather sign looks like. Yeah. So feather sign or a quill sign, and they define it based on this instead of getting really into what the message is displaying or some other things like that. And again, so ground mounted temporary banners, this is an example out of Blue Springs, where they again focus on the fabric and the size and the material and how long it can be up. And so what it kind of breaks down to, so our current regulations in a nutshell on non-residential districts, to your question earlier, was we currently can allow up to 5 signs, anywhere from 15 days to unlimited. Whereas usually there is going to be some specified duration with it. It's typically anywhere from 30 to 60 days, sometimes 90, unless you have a special event permit, totally separate and different. But there are duration time limits set, whereas we don't have that for all of ours. And then also you can see here how many signs, again, in non-residential districts, we're not talking about someone's personal yard or anything, how many signs total are allowed, how we compare. So just some opportunities we think to maybe update our regs or just see how that may look and get a little bit more aligned.
So I'm a business and I want to put up a sign. And I want to put it up. Let's say our limit is, we set the limit for 60 days. And I have to get a permit through the city, right? So at the end of 60 days, can I renew the permit?
You can for up to a total of 90 days is what we allow for those kind of signs currently.
Okay.
But there's a host of other signs that don't have a limit.
But at what point can I come back and go, okay, I want to put the sign back out?
It's up to, you can have up to 90 days per calendar year.
Oh,
with
okay.
your sign permit.
Okay.
So, and then this is an example then getting into, this is now residential. and kind of what a snapshot is. I tried to make the chart as simple as possible. Reviewing and looking at sign codes is a little bit like pulling on a thread on your pants. You think you're just going to pull it and it's fine, but then it gets like super long and it gets crazy. So this is not meant to be like a comprehensive look at ours or other cities. It was just kind of the most conceptual way to generalize kind of what we're looking at and how those comparisons work. But so for example, and then again, this is for residential then. So most cities, there is like the amount of signs that you can have and the square footage size. And then again, there's a duration of a time limit. Whereas opposed to like ours or the no time limit, just something to think about. And then also the amount and the size seems to be kind of on par with others, but the amount of signs that you can have. And again, this is on residential. And again, they're regulating it based on, like the city of Blue Springs says, you can have 3 signs on your yard as long as they don't ever exceed, 8 square feet total. Doesn't matter the kind, type, anything beyond that. So we just wanted to come forward tonight and just see if we have opportunity where we can just kind of update and clarify and remove some of those inconsistencies, and then also talk about the duration, if there's appetite to possibly have us look into setting some durations that is pretty typical, not just Metro, but throughout. And then also want to update and change kind of the way that we're looking at our signs to be more of that design focused and not the type or what it's related to. The end result is still the same. Like, we aren't at this time talking about increasing the number of signs you can have or increasing the size of signs. It's just updating and cleaning and doing those housekeeping things as well. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, before I open it up to discussion, I just want to make a comment that I'm really surprised that the language on tip signs is so vague, given like permanent signs. Every time we get a PDP, we're fighting over the number of signs that are allowed, and
Our temporary sign language right now is not vague at all. It's very, very specific. Were you talking about how it's so vague for the other cities?
Limit. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, for the time limit, sure.
Yeah, Mr. Johnson, you look like you wanted to jump in.
All I was going to say is the reason you see that with PD is they're going to exceed our normal.
Yeah.
So when they're with council.
Yeah.
And usually those are going to be permanent signs too. They're not the temporary ones. So you can get some temporary signs through a special event permit, which we're weren't offering to change or anything. Or if you do like a comprehensive sign plan or sign package with your PDP, where you might include some temporary signs with your permanent ones as well. But yeah, we're very, very, very specific. And I want to see which slide. Where we really dive into what these all mean and what these categories are, even down to what a garage sale sign is defined as, which friends and neighbors aren't, other municipalities aren't doing.
Okay.
So.
Okay. All right. I will open it up to discussion and question. Councilmember Pryor, I saw you taking notes. Do you have anything?
I mean, I don't really have, the other cities are pretty similar. In my opinion, we ought to just do what the other cities are doing since they're all pretty similar. They figured it out, but that's just my opinion. I definitely want to see a time limit on some of the signs just because it gets a bit excessive. But nope, that's all.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Felker.
I was just going to ask what spurred this. Is this just part of how your kind of general maintenance of, let's look at what we have in the code and what can we improve, and this was your target? Or was there something that kind of initiated, hey, we really should?
It was a couple things. I mean, there have been some recent decisions that came down like a year and a half ago regarding signage and regulation, but in addition, doing some housekeeping when we do get signs is something that we deal with quite a bit, and requests for sign permits. So saw some opportunities where some things weren't as crystal clear as well.
if you're looking for comments, and I mean, I'm not opposed to doing some scrub work, clean work, make it consistent. If there's some better practices or best practices that seem to staff a better ability to help help individuals understand the rules, yeah.
So I noticed on the commercial, I feel like I'd be okay with kind of what Prior was saying and just match up on the commercial with allowing three, like a lot of them had 3 signs total. I know their days range varied, but like a 30 to 60 days, I feel like it's pretty generous. And then even residential, I feel like it would almost be kind of nice. I know it does kind of get obnoxious during the political seasons, but it would be kind of nice to allow is I know because I think I read just one is currently allowed for political signs, or is that correct for residential?
Residential, technically you can, well, for residential property, you can technically have up to 4 signs on your property.
It's just the size requirement.
Most cities will do a size requirement with that, so they can have the multiple signs provided they don't exceed a certain amount of size. And so right now we can have the one with 2 more with real estate, but then there's another section of code that says there's 4 possible. So that's something we can continue to look at for how many signs on residential property.
Okay, and then we don't have a set time limit. I feel like especially for political, it's like we know when elections are to just have, okay, starting this date to this date. So it's not like a yearly.
Well, one of the things, yeah, so that's a great question. So we currently do regulate the political signs and say that it can only be up for the duration of the item being on the ballot, and then has to be removed afterwards. Most cities have gotten away from that though too, to make sure they are more content neutral and just saying yard sign is allowed for X amount of days, period, across the board.
Okay. Yeah,
May I
Mr.
jump
Johnson.
in?
Yeah.
One reason for that content neutrality is in a Supreme Court case where I believe it was a religious sign that was David out of danger here, but essentially the Supreme Court said if you have to read what's on the sign, you'd be violating somebody's First Amendment. And so they said these had to be regulated more. What's a size? What's a type? What's a duration? And so you've got to not put blinders on.
Yeah. So Austin versus Reagan Reagan Advertising recently came down in April 2022 on a billboard. Because I had 8 months of my life I had to live with billboards. So, and what that was, to Josh's point, was they were talking about, they had regulations that were different for off-site signs from on-site signs. And so the courts did come down with a stricter test for content neutrality. It's a 2-pronged test now. So it further clarified a previous court case from 2015. And so this does help align us more. And then also that's some other cities had cleaned up and done some of that work too, in alignment with that case as well. And so the political thing, yeah, so that's why kind of everybody's really kind of going to the number of yard signs, period.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks for clearing that up.
Mr. Elam.
I was just going to say, and just to add a little bit to the confusion, we have in our current regulations, we have kind of a base amount of allowed signs at any given time. And then we have bonus signs is what I'll call them, different times of year when you can have above and beyond the base amount. And that's where the political signage section comes into play. Because as Amy was saying, as Ms. Nassif was saying, you have 4 just kind of any sign of any given time, any given place. But then our current language is 1 sign per candidate per issue that is on the ballot. So if you read that to the literal terms, if you have 7 members up for school board and 4 members up for council and 3 ballot initiatives, you can have the original 4 signs plus 14 other signs.
And then if you're selling your property, there's 1 more. Because in the code section, that same section, it says temporary signs allowed, additional, and then non-commercial additional too.
So wait, so I'm thinking, so if somebody's running and So they couldn't have two of the same person in their physical yard at one time.
No.
No, they can.
Oh, they can?
They can.
Can.
Oh, they can. Okay. Because I'm just thinking, you know, those big yards where it's like side of the house and then front, not like too flat, but okay. That's why I was confused about. So
It
thank
would
you.
count as 2 signs.
It just counts as two cents. Okay. All right. Thank you.
So this helps
Well-
staff and helps the public to understand better, helps business owners understand too. So
Well, yeah, on going back to the political signs, didn't the state set when you can put them out? Because I was talking to another council member before this meeting, and it was like 6 weeks before the election, and now he said it was before or whenever you file. Do you know?
I believe that also goes to being tied to our current language of our ordinance.
Okay.
Our ordinance language defined that time period related to the election date. At one point, I don't have the language right in front of me, but they changed when you could file. I think that language that made that change because it used to be 60 days, and so we'd reference 60 days. Ahead of an election, but then that got pushed up, I believe.
Yeah.
So technically by our ordinance, as soon as it's open.
Okay.
And again, that's just for the bonus signs to come into play.
I love that you call them bonus signs. That's for the bonus.
So yeah, that's
signs.
exactly correct. It's during time of election that you can go up and then it has to come down after the resolution of the ballot question.
Okay.
But again, bonus signs because it says additional. So
Okay. So
this will give us an opportunity to, you just want to come back with some draft recommendations for you, red line versions.
okay. Okay. Does anybody else have any questions? Thoughts? You all? No? Good. I don't know.
No, I think the only thing why that my question was about duration, and it does sound like there's appetite to have some duration on these, so they actually truly are temporary. And I think I heard for commercial 30 to 60 days, which is in line with with several other cities. So when we come back to, I can have more drill down like comparisons for you as well in terms of that, what our recommendation would be. And also I heard possible consideration for amount, making sure we're looking at the amount then of the residential signs on residential property. So
And if I hang a banner off my deck,
that's
right?
fine.
Do I need a permit for that?
Well, if it is a banner, well, what we'll do is what we have right now too is there's size requirement, size
Okay.
limitation. Residential again does not require a permit.
Okay.
But you know, if it's a Chiefs flag, it's fine.
Okay. Well, that's not where I was going to hang, but okay. Councilmember Pryor, do you have a question?
What happens if someone violates the sign? Do they just take the signs and put them behind City Hall, or what happens if someone violates all
Oh,
of
so
this?
when we do get a temporary sign, when a temporary sign permit's required, we do actually have a neighborhood service officer that's assigned to each of those permits. And so they follow up and make sure the sign was put up and the size and everything meets what the permit showed. And then also contacts the individuals as soon as it needs to come down, if it hasn't come down.
Is there a fine involved ever, or is there?
Usually people are really cooperative. And
Yeah.
we don't want to get to that part usually, so they usually work with us. If we need to issue a citation, we will, but.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I would almost say, I mean, if we're doing a time limit, we need to specify if that's in a row or for the year.
Correct.
If it's for the year, I would rather go to 90 rather than 30 or 60, you know? But if we're spreading it out throughout the year, I'd much rather have 90, maybe 120, 65.
Maybe just 363. Okay.
Well, I know staff said they wanted to be here till 6 o'clock, so I don't know.
To that
I'm
point,
not sure what staff that is.
point, I want to make sure that when we come back that, you know, we're providing a product you want. And on that political signage, you know, the one sign per ballot, per candidate, blah, blah, blah. I think what we're going to propose is that no, that all just lives under a temporary sign code. So if it's like 4 total, the duration of 90, all that would be it. So I just got poor politicians cornered here, so I just we weren't limiting you to.
Well, limiting the 90 days though, well, if that's per year, if that's calendar year, then that lets you put it up in December.
What most
Gonna
cities
be
have,
tight.
what most cities have done is
Yeah.
if it's a residential yard sign for non-commercial, which is how this would fall, is they say that it can be up for the duration of a event.
Oh, okay.
And they leave it that blanket. So, that's what most cities have. So that's probably what maybe we'll come back to.
Okay. Councilmember Hodges, yeah.
Okay, maybe I'm just confused. So if you leave it up for the duration, you use your 90 days for, say, an April election, but here comes November, you're just out of luck because you used them all in the April?
No,
Is that how
so
that
that
works?
90 days would not, so what we would probably be looking at doing is, so the actual time frame is usually, we'll say like, you can have temporary signs up for 90 days or the duration of an event.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
All
does
right,
that
that
help?
makes more
Help?
sense.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilmember Pryor, did you have something to say?
No, I was just trying to clarify to her that just the duration of the event. So if there's two different events, then it's two durations of the event. So, yeah, no.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? Do you have any questions for us?
No,
or
I have
anything?
everything
Is that
to
clear
be
as
able to
mud,
provide
or-
a draft.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Yes.
All right. With that being said, I'm gonna move on to roundtable. Is there anything you all as committee members would like to see this committee address as we move forward? Councilmember
I
Bell.
thought we had like a whole bunch of things that have been deferred, referred, delegated,
Oh.
however.
I'm not
clarified.
saying that we don't have a list of
Okay.
things to conquer. But I also want the committee members to be able to say, hey, you know, I've been wanting to get this done while I'm on council, or can we discuss this item in committee and maybe see how to work it through, because this is the place to do that rather than when we're Tuesday nights trying to solve everything there. So if there's anything specific you all want to get done, you know, to help you as individual council members, then, you know, let's see if we can help everybody explore ideas.
Could we just get a list of what those, perhaps to help us see what we're already planning to discuss, and maybe it might spur some additional thoughts?
You
Could
know
get a
what?
list of it?
Yeah, I'm going to set up a meeting with Mr. Johnson and Mr. Elam, and they have a running list. And when we have our meeting, let's send that out to the committee and what we're looking at. And yeah, that'd be a great idea. Thank you.
Well,
Councilmember Pryor, do you have anything?
I have a lot, but I didn't bring my list.
Give me one
tonight.
or two.
Okay, Overland Park, I guess, just yesterday passed that the new, and I don't know the exact verbiage of it, but that new development has to put in concrete versus asphalt because they're trying to get away from a lot of the chip and seal, and concrete streets are 50 years versus the 7 or 8 years, I guess, of asphalt. And so, and I think that was a fantastic idea. So, I mean, that's one of them that I'd like to potentially explore.
I think that'd be good for Public Works.
Yeah,
Okay.
well, except whenever I brought up something during Public Works, they said it's a CEDC thing because it's design standards or
Well,
whatever.
Councilmember DeMauro and I do that on purpose.
Okay.
Mr. Elam.
Just on that, the pavement standards are part of the design and construction manual, which is utilized by the development community, but it is put together by the Public Works Department. The city engineer has the control of the technical specifications associated with that. So it's a blend. You go to both locations. There's pros and cons to concrete pavements versus asphalt pavements, and we could talk about that for a long time if you'd like. I like both, but but yeah, that could go either way, but we can mark that down as something to explore.
Okay. And then another thing that's big on my list, but I don't necessarily have it completely. I don't even know exactly how to word it, but infrastructure in Lee Summit as far as I feel like a lot of times it's an afterthought versus being a little bit more proactive on certain things that we have. Like for instance, I think when I was a kid in Overland Park, they built St. Luke's South. And it was out, and they kind of put it in the middle of nowhere, and everyone was like, why are they doing all of those roads and putting a hospital out in the middle of nowhere? And then, but they put in like good streets that aren't so skinny that then you want to throw up a median and make the street even skinnier. Like, I don't know, I just feel like sometimes it feels like it's not super planned out.
Yeah, I think Mayor Pro Tem Lopez and I've talked about this. You know, they do have a different way of doing things where we build the infrastructure in preparation for the development. And I think sometimes some explanation of why aren't we doing that, or can we ever get to that point, would be really helpful. You know what I mean? Especially with the PRI property down south and up north coming on. You know, do we need to, how can we think about maybe putting in roads and sewer and water before all the development comes? So I don't know, Mr. Elam, if you want to, if I can give that to Councilmember DeMora on Public Works.
I'll say that's a great topic of discussion. There's a lot of history associated with that, and quite frankly, I'll say that that's probably some just different strategies. There's also some differences in laws between the state of Missouri and the state of Kansas that make that a little bit easier from a financial standpoint to do in Kansas. And there's a lot of fiscal stewardship, financial stewardship associated with those different decisions that I think would be worth a discussion on to maybe explain a little bit of how we have developed over a number of years, how they have in Johnson County, Kansas, for example.
Okay, I feel like I see it even a little bit more so on the St. Louis side than I do here, even in the state of Missouri. Just the not putting so much pressure on developing infrastructure on the actual developer and putting it back more on the city, kind of. But yeah, so I'd love to have that discussion just to kind of know why it is that way here. Yeah, like I said, I don't have my list, but those were two things that I know are on my list that I would like to just have more information on.
Okay, thank you. Oh yeah, Councilmember Hodges.
I just have a question. I know during a council meeting, we were all discussing like the homeless stuff, and we said, oh, let's come up with our own plan. Would that be start in our committee, or how do we get the ball rolling on that so we're not just an afterthought with that and we are proactive with it?
So the current, I guess we would need direction from council on to explore different items, and I believe we've received any direction at this point.
Well, and I'm not sure. I don't think you were there. I can't remember if you were there or not that night, because I suggested that we create an ad hoc committee, and I don't think as far as an ad hoc council committee, so they can address that one issue. I will follow up with the mayor pro tem and the mayor, because I haven't seen any communication on that. Okay, and see if they still want to go that way. I think that's the way to go, because just for time. So okay.
Yep.
Okay, and I'll get back to you all. Thanks for following up with that. Anything else from committee? Nope. All right, staff, you all have anything for us?
Sure.
It's 5:40, so yeah, we got 20 minutes.
Real quick, I wanted to talk about what was planned for October very quickly. I think the police will come with their agenda item they weren't able to get to tonight about the liquor licensing and kind of enhancing that. Also, from Development Services, we were going to do kind of a comprehensive look on what I'll call quality housing. It has to do with our past efforts about quality housing. Some of you were on when that all came up. A discussion on rental licensing and property maintenance company licensing, our business licensing program, how it is now, and then what advantages we reap from that, from changing some standards and rules things. A discussion on rental inspections and what that might imply in our past these are a lot of things we've researched in the past, but the CEDC aware of and get some direction about things you want us to explore. It's all related in that.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. All right, thank you. Mr. Elam, you got anything? All right, well, if there's no other business, we stand adjourned at about 5:42. Thank you.